Next on Unsolved Mysteries. First, they were pen pals, then secret lovers. But that was just the beginning for a young school teacher and a convicted bank robber. He's called the Iceman, a mysterious creature, half man and half ape. Is he a prehistoric human or a carnival hoax? An exclusive interview with G. Daniel Walker paints a chilling portrait of a convicted murderer with a 30-page rap sheet. And in Florida, a murder investigation has stalled because no one can identify the young female victim. 5 stories. They're all strange, but guess what? They're all true. I'm Dennis Farina, and this is Unsolved Mysteries. Walpole, a maximum security prison in Massachusetts.
My husband.
Hi, Karen. Take Richard to be my husband.
For better or worse.
After an intense 8-year courtship, Karen Walters and Richard Cepolonis become husband and wife. This was the happiest day of Karen Walters' young life. Karen was a shy, unassuming teacher who still lived at home with her mother and her sister. But for inmate Richard Cepolonis, the wedding may have been something different. Perhaps nothing more than a means to an end. Richard Cepolonis was serving 58 to 82 years for bank robbery and armed assault with the intent to murder. Cepolonis had hit the bank in Woburn, Massachusetts, with 2 accomplices.
One robber jumped over the counter. 2 others had their automatic weapons on me. One in front of me, one behind me.
Open the door! I can't. It's on a timer. Switch!
Open it. The man in front of me put the weapon under my chin and waited what seemed like a long time, which was probably just a second or so, and said, "Come on, let's get out of here." He says, "If we see a cop outside, I'm going to kill the cop, and I'm going to come back in and kill you."
The armed robbers made off with more than $17,000 in cash. A silent alarm brought an unmarked police unit within seconds.
Anyone hurt? Everyone's fine. They've got guns. The Red Mustang.
The bank manager pointed the direction in which the getaway car had left the bank. I followed behind the car. There's probably 3 to 4 colonists behind him going down the street.
I'm in pursuit of a Red Mustang heading east on Cambridge.
And that's when they started firing machine guns. I put my gun out the window and fired 2 warning shots in the air. At that point, the person that was hanging out the window shooting on the passenger side went back into the car, and they pulled in front of a car that was going in the same direction and opened fire on the driver of the car.
To create a diversion, the robbers shot and wounded a 60-year-old woman. It gave them just enough time to escape. 2 months later, Richard Cepolonis was tracked down in New York City. He was convicted and sent to Walpole State Prison, a maximum security facility. Over the next 5 years, Cepolonis was the perfect inmate. Then he met Karen Walters. At the time, Karen was attending William Patterson College in her home state of New Jersey.
Walters was doing a project while she was attending college, and this project involved writing to a prisoner in a correctional system, and by chance, she selected Cepolonis. This campaign, this letter-writing campaign, grew and grew, and shortly after that, she began visiting him.
Karen.
Richard?
A typical inmate takes advantage of people out in the community. Oftentimes, they'll latch on to women who are lonely want some attention, and they take advantage of them. And I think the women are beguiled by all that attention.
Karen, why don't you ever ask me about the shooting? You know why I'm here.
I just thought you didn't want to talk about it.
I got nothing to hide. Karen, I did not shoot that innocent woman.
A man on the outside has a job to go to, he's got friends, he's got other commitments. But a man on the inside is so focused on that woman. She feels so special and so desired and so wanted. It elevates the whole romance to a very high level.
Karen started leading a double life. She taught learning disabled children and was highly regarded by her fellow faculty members. But none of them knew that she was in love with a convict.
Let's do one of the Dean-animated diploma.
Meanwhile, Cepolonis became the first inmate at Walpole State Prison to earn a college degree.
I can honestly say that being in prison has been more of an asset than a liability.
Dearly beloved, we have come together in the presence of God to witness and
8 years after they met, Karen married Cepolonis. 2 years later, he was transferred to a minimum security facility.
He was very bright and very personable. So I think once staff find that in an inmate, I think it's easy for staff to let their guard down. And I think you always have to be careful with an individual like that.
Cepolonis' new home was literally a prison without bars. Karen could visit unsupervised almost any time she wanted.
I want that dream.
We'll be patient, and it'll happen.
Not unless we make it happen. I don't know if you're ready for that.
What do you mean?
10 months later, Karen was forced to act. She and Cepolonis were caught having sex on the prison grounds. Karen was barred from visiting her husband. 3 weeks later, she drove to an isolated spot about a mile from the prison. Her entire life savings, $20,000 in cash, was in her pocket. At around noon, Cepolonis appeared. He had simply walked away from the prison grounds.
I was so worried. I didn't know what had happened.
Karen left behind her career and her family for a life on the run.
Do you want me to drive?
Karen, get in.
Update. After a recent broadcast, a viewer in Minnesota recognized Karen's photograph. A task force, which included FBI and police, staked out this house where Cepolonis and Walters were living.
As soon as he pulled into the parking lot and got out of the vehicle, one of the task force members was right there with him, so he jumped out, drew his weapon, ordered Cepolonis not to move, and at that point other task force members got there, jumped out, and assisted in the arrest.
Karen Walters was picked up 20 minutes later. For 8 years, she and Cepolonis had completely fooled all of their neighbors.
When I found out that they were who they were, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. My mouth fell to the floor. I never would imagine in a million years that these two people would do anything wrong.
When the task force searched the house, they found a bag of robbery tools.
The discovery of the face mask, the gun, the rubber gloves, the large amount of cash in small bills, we think that perhaps he's been back in the bank robbery or robbery business again.
After their capture, Karen Walters and Richard Cepolonis were extradited to Massachusetts. Cepolonis was returned to prison to finish out his original sentence. Karen Walters spent several months in a women's correctional facility for her role in the breakout. She has since been released. Next, he's called the Iceman because he was found frozen solid in a block of ice. Is he a prehistoric being or just a hoax? Altura, Minnesota.
Well, as you can see, gentlemen, these are not ideal circumstances in which to view the exhibit.
On a chilly December evening, a promoter named Frank Hansen led two scientists into a dimly lit barn.
Mr. Hansen, is the exhibit ever shown outside the trailer?
No, it is always shown only in the trailer.
Ivan Sanderson and Dr. Bernard Heuvelmans, experts in the study of undiscovered species, were not prepared for what they were about to see.
Gentlemen, here is the exhibit.
Frozen inside a block of solid ice was a creature that appeared to be half man, half ape. These are actual photographs of the Iceman. After Sanderson and Heuvelmans saw the creature, they were convinced that it had genuine scientific value. But weeks later, it had vanished, and with it, any chance of further examination.
Who or what was the Iceman? Many people assume that it was just a carnival sideshow created by a master entertainer. But others are convinced that it was a prehistoric ancestor of man that somehow survived into modern times.
This machine predates the Model T.
It all began when a promoter, Frank Hansen, was traveling the state fair circuit. He was allegedly approached by a mysterious stranger. The following recreations are based upon published accounts.
I find what you're doing here, sir, is fascinating. I have an exhibit that I think would benefit from your expertise. Please, give me a call. It might be worth your while. Thank you.
Thank you.
Later, Hansen met the stranger at a refrigerated warehouse in a little-known location.
What you are going to see belongs to me. How I came by it is my business, and we need not discuss that at the moment.
Is it real? Where did you get this from?
Frank Hansen agreed to take the creature on the road. Over the next 2 years, the Iceman became a star attraction at carnivals and state fairs throughout the Midwest. Zookeeper Bob Shipleski saw the Iceman when he was 18 years old.
What I was looking at was not made out of latex. It was not made out of rubber. It did not appear to be a man-made thing. But as far as my opinion, I don't know what I was looking at. But I'm sure I was looking at something dead.
Environmentalist David Rivard also saw the exhibit.
The first thing that went through the average person's mind was that this was not a wax animal that he had there. This was some kind of a formerly live animal that was in the block of ice.
Dr. Terry Cullen is a zoological and veterinary researcher.
I had long been an aficionado of sideshows and going to see them. Always had a great time trying to find out what they were doing and what they did to fool the public.
Cullen first saw the Iceman when he was 17. He says the creature appeared to be a 6-foot-tall adolescent male. It was covered with medium-length hair and had highly visible follicles. Cullen also noticed a traumatic injury to the left side of the Iceman's face.
There was a noticeable odor coming out of this casket. The one thing that there is no doubt in my mind about is that the thing that I observed, the carcass that I observed, was in fact made out of some sort of flesh.
Well, young man, you've been here before, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Well,
Terry was hooked. He returned to the exhibit a number of times. Once, he even snuck in a magnifying glass.
There was something of a death grimace on the face. The upper lip was pulled back a bit. I was able to observe all 4 incisors, which were very large, very squarish, very much like an orang's incisors. Whatever this was, it was important enough to get the necessary scientific personnel in there to view it.
Kid, I've been to a lot of sideshows. These things are always fake.
No, this one's amazing. I think this one's real.
Eventually, Terry convinced an anthropologist from the University of Minnesota to take a look at the creature.
He was in there perhaps 10 to 15 minutes, came back out again, and he started walking past where I was standing, and he had sort of a dreamy look on his face, and I came zipping up to him.
What'd you think?
It's amazing.
Yeah? I mean, well, tell me.
No, I can't. It's really amazing.
What'd you see out of it? I mean, what did you...
Thank you.
Yeah.
I remember being practically close to tears from frustration that I had finally gotten someone who at least had some credibility in the field of anthropology to look at this thing, and I couldn't even get 6 words out of the gentleman. Now, reasons for that I can't even speculate on. At that point, I decided I would have to pursue other avenues.
Terry finally convinced Sanderson and Heuvelmans to examine the Iceman.
Sanderson and Heuvelmans were both convinced that, in fact, this carcass was the genuine carcass of some unknown form of animal or hominid.
When the scientists published their findings, Frank Hansen became the center of attention. Before long, the local sheriff stopped by his farmhouse.
Look, Frank, taking a cadaver over state lines is illegal, and if it's the real McCoy, how did he get dead?
Listen, you can come with me and we'll look at it together.
That same night, Frank Hansen left town, taking his controversial exhibit with him. A few months later, Hansen was back on the circuit with a replica of the mysterious creature. The whereabouts of the real Iceman are still unknown.
This thing may one day be understood by us as a genuine object, as a true representative of something primitive and man-like that is still living today. If, under other circumstances, this kind of thing is found and described and matches those extensive descriptions by Sanderson and Heuvelmans, then we would know that this was the real thing that they saw.
What was the Iceman? A primitive human-like species preserved until the present day, or an elaborate hoax? And what happened to the original? Frank Hansen may have the answers, but he declined to be interviewed. At one point, Hansen said the Iceman was a man-made illusion, but he has changed his story many, many times. For now, it seems that the legend of the Iceman must remain a mystery. Next, a young man becomes the innocent victim of a killer in a neighborhood where gangs rule. Freeport, New York.
The tetanus shots, those are what hurt.
For Pam Carenti, it was just another day of running errands. Then, as she was driving her teenage son to the doctor, she passed what appeared to be a terrible car accident.
What's going on? I can't see anything, can you?
I said to my son, look over there and see what's going on. So he just looked over and said, I don't see anything. You can't see anything. There's just ambulances all over. So I passed it. I took him to the doctor's office. We came back home.
It was then that Pam received a phone call about her oldest son, 21-year-old Damien.
No, he's not. May I take a message?
And I got a phone call from one of his friends asking me, is Damien there? I said, no, he's not. He was going to go out to see his friends. Aren't you with him? No. Okay, never mind. And they hung up.
Hello?
And that was just, the whole thing was odd.
When Damien didn't answer her calls, Pam remembered the ambulances and decided to check local hospitals.
I called South Nassau Hospital.
Hi, my name's Pam Carenti.
And said, do you have a Damien Carenti there? Yes, who is this? I said, this is his mom. I said, is he there? Is he okay? Why didn't anybody call me? Why aren't I being informed? What's going on? Just tell me what's going on. And she said, didn't the detective come to your house yet?
Within minutes, Pam was at the hospital. Her son Damien had been involved in the incident she saw earlier, but it was no traffic accident.
My son was there on the bed, and he was in a hospital gown, and he looked like a complete angel. And I went to hug him, and there was blood on my hand.
Oh, God.
When they told me he was shot 5 times in the head, I couldn't comprehend it. Everything went crazy at that point.
I saw my wife crying on the other side of the door. There was the nurse. I said to her, what's the matter? She said, he's dead. Just like that.
I'm so sorry.
Something died in me that day, too.
Pam Corrente and her husband Damiano soon learned that their son had died in a gang shooting. As if that wasn't enough, there were allegations that Damien himself was a gang member. To Damien's grieving parents, it just did not make sense.
Damien was a pre-med student at Stony Brook University, and he had an ambition, and that was to go to college and get his degree and become an anesthesiologist. My son had absolutely no gang affiliation. That was proven over and over. It was written in every newspaper. He was absolutely not a part of a gang and had no gang affiliation.
What time are you gonna be back?
Before dinner.
Dinner's at 6:30.
All right.
Okay, thanks, honey. I appreciate it.
Okay.
In the weeks leading up to his death, Damien had returned home from college for winter break and started hanging around with friends from high school.
One of those friends
Yo, Harold.
was a man by the name of Harold Zambrano.
Good looking, kid. Yo, pop your trunk for me, yo? Yeah, sure.
Harold was a 19-year-old member of a local gang called Nientes.
I was just looking for these punks. These punks? Why? What's up?
Harold told Damien that 2 days earlier, he was jumped by members of MS-13, a violent El Salvadorian street gang originally from Los Angeles.
Crack me over the head with a bottle. Oh, that looks horrible. Yeah, I know, son.
Harold asked Damien for help.
Damien had the biggest heart in the world. It was part of his problem. Anybody asked him for anything, he would do it and he would be there, even if he had his own plans.
That's not right. I know, yo. That's why you got my back, son. We're gonna go look for these cats. Yeah, I got your back.
Damien Corrente, on the day that he died, I'm sure had no idea as to what he was getting involved in. Harold Zambrano, being a gang member, probably never publicized that fact to Damien.
At a local strip mall, Harold found what he was looking for.
Yo, that's one of them. That's one of them right there. Stop the car.
19-year-old Herman De Leon.
Herman De Leon is a known MS-13 member and was wearing the colors, so there was no question in their mind that they had found somebody.
Yo, we're his friends now, son.
They approached Herman De Leon.
Who are you? Who are you? Don't play stupid, son. Did you do this? Oh, my God.
They confronted him with the injury to Harold Zambrano.
I didn't do that. Y'all was over here waiting for my girl. Yo, what are you talking about? Waiting for your girl. You lying, son.
He was there at the laundromat with his girlfriend. De Leon admitted that he was an MS-13 member and told him that he had nothing to do with that particular incident.
You do nothing like that, son. It's not worth it. Get everybody to
Zambrano and those guys indicated that they respected the fact that he was with his girlfriend and they wouldn't cause him any trouble while he was with his girlfriend.
Forget about it.
Damien, Harold, and the others returned to their car. Then 2 more members of MS-13 showed up.
What you do, man? That's one of our boys, kid. Get that.
Zambrano was shot in the neck. Damien was shot 5 times in the head. A police investigation quickly revealed the identity of the alleged shooters: Herman De Leon, Mario Portillo, and Juan Gil Ferrufimo. But the suspects could not be found. To deal with her grief, Pam started a gang awareness program in Freeport.
I had no choice. I had to fight. It was either that or go with the rage and the anger and the hate. So I can't do that. But I can fight back by trying to educate our children and trying to find a way for them, and to educate the parents to educate the children.
Pam finds her new work rewarding, though it will never take away the pain of losing her son. There is only one thing that would help: catching the killers of Damien Corrente. Although the families of all 3 suspects still live in Freeport, police have traced Herman De Leon, Mario Portillo, and Juan Gil Ferrufimo to El Salvador. If their specific whereabouts can be determined, the suspects could be extradited to the United States for trial. If you have any information about these individuals, please contact us at unsolved.com. Next, a disturbing face-to-face confrontation with a diabolical mind. Convicted killer, G. Daniel Walker. For years, scientists and philosophers have struggled to answer this question. Are people born as psychopaths, or do they become psychopaths because of their environment?
If I were to cast my vote in one direction or the other, I'd probably say that it's more likely that they're born, not made. I think that there are fairly strong genetic contributions to all personality traits, including the personality traits that make up psychopathy.
I think it's pretty clear that while people may have a inherited susceptibility to certain kinds of violent crimes, that individuals who go on to produce these kinds of abominable crimes are created. They're shaped by their families, they're shaped by their societies, they model the culture heroes in their civilization, and they go on to commit these abominable acts.
Big deal. Death always went with the territories. I'll see you in Disneyland.
The best way to understand the mind of the criminal psychopath is to talk to the experts, the killers themselves. You're about to meet G. Daniel Walker. Walker is a dangerous and diabolical murderer.
G. Daniel Walker was serving time for armed robbery and attempted murder when he escaped from prison. While on the run, Walker killed advertising executive William Ashlock. He then raped Ashlock's fiancée, all the while proclaiming his love for her. Soon after, Walker was arrested and tried for murder. Walker defended himself in court, claiming that Ashlock was the victim of a mafia hit squad. He insisted that he had only helped to cover up the murder to protect Ashlock's fiancée. He lost his case and received a sentence of 17 years to life in prison. While Walker insists he is innocent of the murder charge, he brags about committing more than 300 other crimes for which he has not been charged or tried.
Do you feel that you are pretty much by the system where you belong from the standpoint of...
Yes. I'm convicted of murder. I've always denied that I was the one that did the actual shooting in that particular case, but I've taken a witness stand.
We asked former FBI criminal profiler Robert Ressler to interview G. Daniel Walker.
Given the same set of facts, I would do it again.
How long is your rap sheet?
I would think the current one would probably be about 29 to 30 pages.
29 to 30 pages.
Yeah.
Charles Manson's only 5.
Well, he was just a killer.
But yeah, at the same time, I've heard you say that your criminal record, your rap sheet, your FBI record, whatever, does not certainly hold all that you have done.
Definitely not. No, the body of work of the criminal enterprise has been much greater, and let's hope that I've been successful in some things. See, you're meeting a failed criminal right now, and you're very happy to be meeting me as a failed criminal, because if you were meeting me as a successful criminal, it means that I'd have the gun pointed at you, and you would suddenly have this.
A person like him can be extremely dangerous. He doesn't buy our system. He does not buy our society's rules as we establish them. And again, that's a mark of a psychopath or a sociopath, is that they make their own rules in life. You have had so many opportunities to stay out of jail, and yet you keep coming back in.
Well, then again, you see prison as not being successful, and just because you're in prison doesn't mean you can't be successful. I think Solzhenitsyn said the greatest freedom that a man enjoys is being in prison, because they feed you breakfast in the morning, you can go out and kill one of your cellmates, and they'll still feed you lunch and give you sheets for your bed in the evening.
The psychopathic individual will use several different defenses. One of those is rationalization. He will come up with very elaborate explanations that, when thought about very carefully, make no sense.
Institutions are not that unsatisfying. You got to remember, I don't have to go out and kill any cows. They're going to do all that for me. I don't have to go out and cook any meals. I don't have to wash any dishes. They're going to do all those things for me. So the institution becomes a wife by nature. They're going to wash my dirty socks for me. They're going to do all of the things that I don't necessarily like to do. So if that's becoming institutionalized, I'm happily married.
If you had the option, would you leave?
I've had the option to escape. I have escaped, as you know. Juries have tried me and never found me guilty of escape. I've always represented myself in those cases. There is a certain excitement when you have escaped from a major penitentiary and you know that the red lights are right behind you, you know the sirens are going, there is a certain excitement that it's better than sex. So yes, there is that possibility that there may be a 14th escape.
You know, I've heard that before from other people.
It's exciting.
The excitement is a high factor in maintaining a life the way you have.
And oftentimes you'll find that the people that are pursuing you will lose the scent, so you have to go back and show them, no, you've got to turn this way, fellas, to keep the chase going. And I've done that.
They will draw the interview into what we call a narcissistic twinship, where they will try to do things to show in what ways they are similar to the interviewer. And oftentimes the interviewer is both flattered and caught off guard.
You know the minute you've taken down a perpetrator and you've taken them down that you guys get together and give the high five and say, good God, we did that. Oh, that was a great job, Well, the criminals do the same thing. The minute that you've outwitted them, you get together, give the high five and say, oh, we got over on them.
Are you saying there's just a fine line between you and I then?
Very fine line, and you know it.
Do you have any true feelings of remorse?
Well, I would have to say, take a different tangent on that. Do I have remorse for the things that put me there? We have to remember that the crime that I'm in prison for, I defended myself. So I'm the one that lost that case. So I have remorse that I didn't handle that case in a little different way. As far as
the psychopathic individual will engage in a psychology of reversals. Pain originates in other people, problems originate in other people, and responsibility for our behavior is really other people's responsibility.
Do you feel that you are a truly dangerous person from the standpoint of committing violent acts?
Only if you've done something wrong to me. I think what you're referring to is the fact...
From prison, Walker somehow managed to have highly toxic poison imported into the United States. A deputy district attorney who had once prosecuted Walker became terrified that he might be Walker's target.
So when suddenly the system discovered that I had 2.2 pounds of poison in the United States, they went crazy. Like, what does G. Daniel Walker want with this poison? Well, the little lady that lives in Dubuque, Iowa, that has an antique collection that's never heard of the name G. Daniel Walker, knew that I didn't have that poison for her, so she had no concern. There were a lot of deputy attorney generals, a lot of assistant United States attorneys that suddenly became very uncomfortable, and there were a lot of judges that became uncomfortable. And they started a major investigation. They indicted me, a two-count indictment for importing this poison. They spent about $1,300,000 working up a prosecution, and then they folded their tent because they found out that I hadn't broken the law.
Did you use poison?
They've never found any sufficient evidence to charge me with having used it, but it certainly caused one deputy attorney general in the state of California to go through his cabinets and take all ingestible items out, toothpaste and liquor, and finally his wife said, well, gee, it could be in the carpet, so they recarpeted their home, and finally they sold the home, moved.
So in other words, creating paranoia in a person can be oftentimes even more insidious than just making verbal threats.
It's a better gamesmanship than doing physical violence, because fear lives with you 24 hours a day. Fear never goes away. If you kill somebody, that's over.
Or attempt to kill somebody.
Yes, or if you hurt them, and as long as the pain is there, but fear is a pain that lives with you forever.
G. Daniel Walker has been denied parole at least 7 times. If the state does grant him parole on the murder charge, Walker still faces a 50-year term on federal charges that stem from credit card scams he operated from inside prison. G. Daniel Walker will almost certainly die in prison. Next, the reunion of a young man and the woman who saved his life. And coming up, a sheriff in Florida searches for the identity of a murder victim. Naples, Florida.
Wow.
Look how big she is.
After Steve Newton's first child, Virginia, was born, he headed home on his motorcycle to pick up the family car. He had no way of knowing that he was on a collision course with disaster.
I just remember coming straight down on my head. As I hit, I saw, poof, this big bright light, and that was it. Then I was just completely out.
For Steve Newton, death was just a heartbeat away.
Are you okay? Can you hear me?
Help me.
A passing motorist turned Steve over in the water and saved his life. She remained at the scene until Steve was transported to a hospital, and then she disappeared without Steve ever learning her name.
If she could just see my daughter, she'll know that she did me the greatest favor or gift that anybody can give, and that's to give me back my life. And I'd like to say thank you for that.
Update. On the night of our broadcast, a viewer in Florida recognized Steve's story as one she had heard from a coworker named Tammy Dotson. As it turns out, Tammy was Steve's mysterious Good Samaritan. Steve and Tammy met face-to-face for the first time since the near-fatal accident. As a special treat, Steve brought along Virginia, then 1.5 years old.
Nobody's ever gone that far to come to thank me. And he kept saying that I was his angel. I've never been called an angel before, far from it. But it made me feel good inside to know that I've done something that's helped somebody so much.
That day, Tammy and Steve returned to the scene of the accident, all too aware that Tammy's simple act of kindness had changed both of them forever.
It makes me want to do more for other people. Now, if someone's in trouble, I would go that extra mile, that extra, just to help that person.
I just wanted to hug him. I was so glad to see that he was okay, and the baby and everything. I was just thrilled that he was fine.
Steve and his wife Sharon now have a second child, something that never could have happened if Tammy hadn't acted so quickly to save Steve's life.
Lake Panasoffkee lies in the heart of the vast Florida wetlands. Crossing the lake's eastern shore is Interstate 75, which connects Florida with the rest of the Southeast. Two teenagers are hiking along the interstate heading north from Tampa when they notice the outline of a human form in the shallow water.
Hey, look at that. What is that?
Authorities retrieve the badly decomposed body of a young woman. She appears to have been strangled. A man's size 36 belt is still wrapped around her throat. Investigators determine that the woman may have been in her late teens or early 20s. She has no identification and has been dead for approximately 3 weeks. They are unable to find the killer, nor determine the woman's identity. No one comes forward to claim the body. 6 months pass. The young woman is laid to rest beneath a small metal marker that simply reads, Jane Doe. 10 years later, Jamie Adams becomes the sheriff of Sumter County. He begins to review the department's unsolved cases and is particularly disturbed by the murder of this young woman.
It bothered me that this young girl had never been identified. And being a daddy and a granddaddy, I just couldn't accept the fact that somebody out there couldn't come forward and let us know who this young girl was. It's something that I had to do, and I just feel deeply that it's a mission that I've got to accomplish.
A year after he took office, Sheriff Adams officially reopened the case. He obtained a court order to have the body exhumed. Dr. William Maples, one of the nation's foremost forensic anthropologists, was brought in to assist with the new investigation.
A re-examination of the remains ordered by Sheriff Adams gave us a piece of information that is crucial, something that wouldn't have been known had it not been for Sheriff Adams, and that was that she had orthopedic surgery to her right ankle. This was done by an orthopedic surgeon who wound a tendon through holes drilled in the bones of the ankle. It is a Watson-Jones or modified Watson-Jones technique. The family or the physician may remember this.
Sheriff Adams next contacted Linda Gallinier, a forensic artist renowned for her ability to create accurate composite drawings based on skeletal remains.
One of the first things we do are get photos of the skulls, and it's important for those to be to scale, the same size of the skull. We use the crime lab to do that, and they bring forth the profiles and facial front of the skulls themselves. Then an artist will sit down and will put either tissue paper or some type of matte acetate over it so we can still see the photograph but draw. And we actually plot the tissue depth using these charts, and you just mold that face until it comes to life on paper.
Little Miss Panisovsky was beginning to come alive for Sheriff Adams. Next, he asked Linda to create age regression drawings, approximating how the victim might have appeared, first at age 12 and then at age 6. This technique had never been used before in law enforcement.
I needed something that I could put her back in time with the hopes that maybe a school teacher, Sunday school teacher, or even a classmate that had went to school with us, say when she's in the 5th grade or the 1st grade, that would remember.
Sheriff Adams has mailed flyers to more than 3,000 law enforcement agencies throughout the United States and Canada. He has contacted hundreds of hospitals and followed up hundreds of leads. Still, the identity of Little Miss Panisovsky remains a mystery.
I know that there's a loved one, there's a mother, a father, an aunt that knows and loves this young girl. And I think I owe it to them to try to identify this young girl and get her buried in the rightful place and take her home.
The young woman was 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighed about 100 pounds, and was approximately 20 years old. In addition to the Watson-Jones surgical technique that had been performed on her ankle, the young woman had extensive dental work, including crowns, caps, and fillings. The examination also revealed that she had given birth to at least one child. These clues suggest that the victim was well cared for and may have left a family behind. If you have any information that can help identify this young woman, please log on to our website at unsolved.com.